So yeah, everybody can come up. Yeah, even got the entrance music. That's great. So thank you very much for having me and for us. I'm really excited about this. I wanted to first give you a little bit of context on who I am and how this panel came about. Because as you can see from the bios on the pamphlet, these panelists do not come from your world and do not come from your industry, and that's actually done on purpose. So the quick context on me and VaynerMedia. So I head up EMEA operations for VaynerMedia. We're a full-service advertising agency headquartered in New York, and we, in our own right, are a disruptor and a challenger of the advertising industry, which is very entrenched and dominated by incumbent businesses, which I'm sure is something that every business person can relate to when they look at change within their industry. So what we've done over the last 8 years to become one of the biggest global independent agencies is we've helped Fortune 500 companies navigate change. Navigate change specifically in the sense of how people are consuming media and consuming content, the rise of mobile, the rise of digital, and what that means for any type of brand to advertise. But the context for this panel is, this came out of a conversation that the Bench Events team and I had last October, and they said, hey, wouldn't it be interesting if we could get some people from outside the hotel industry to bring their perspective on disruption and change and what it means to be a challenger for them. So I'm hoping that what we can do, and I'll let the panel introduce themselves individually in a second, is bring you guys a perspective on what it means to be a challenger, what it means to focus on the future, what it means to navigate change and lead with disruption from people that do not work in your world, but you can find something to take from it to bridge back to what you do. So with that, I'll turn it over to the panelists, do a quick introduction. I have some questions to kind of guide the conversation. Was going to do audience Q&A, but based on how the last one went, maybe we'll stick to ourselves. But if you do have questions, I will leave a couple minutes at the end, and I'm hoping we can get some questions from you guys. I always find that's the way to bring the most value, is specific things you have in mind that these people can speak to. So, Maha, I'll let you go first.
So my name is Maha Abouelenein. I am American Egyptian. I am a professional storyteller. My job is to help companies tell their stories better. I have a long-standing career in communications, crisis management, and PR. I handle the communications for Google, for Netflix. I'm a longtime employee of Orascom Telecom and working with the Sawiris family. And I'm really actually here today to talk to you a lot about reputation currency and how you can do your storytelling differently, taking from the playbooks of Google, Netflix, some of the world's top digital companies, and how you can kind of disrupt and innovate on your own and to learn a lot of lessons from what I've gained.
Hi, I'm Ritesh Tilani. I'm actually from the region, born and raised here, and spent some time in the US and in Singapore in consulting with Bain. And I've been in technology for most of my life after consulting, first heading up strategy for Nokia in the region, but then also I've been a serial entrepreneur. I've also been a VC. I was running the UAE office for one of the regional VCs called IMENA with about $50 million under management. But as an entrepreneur and as a VC, I mean, as you're probably aware, the technology industry is heavily focused on innovation. And I've tried to infuse that into anything and everything that I've done in the last 10 or so years as an entrepreneur primarily. So I hope I can share some of my experiences on that.
Hi, my name is Richard Fitzgerald. I own and founded a company called Augustus, which is a new media publisher. I've spent 10 years working inside media and advertising agencies, mostly with WPP Group in Ireland, UK, and MENA region. And in 2016, I set up this new media publishing company. We do Love in Dubai and Love in Saudi websites. So we're using online channels to disrupt the print industry and hopefully the TV industry as well.
Great. So I'll kick it off with the first question. So I just wanted to ask you guys, from a more general perspective, how do you bring innovation and disruption to your respective industries in the job that you do? How do you kind of manifest this idea of being a challenger to incumbent industries? So we'll go back around the horn the other way and start with you, Richard.
Yeah, I think I've always worked in social media. Luckily, the start of my career started when social media platforms were happening about 10, 12 years ago. And firstly, it was with small companies doing social media for clients and convincing and that they were the new channels to communicate on. And then within big media buying groups, setting up independent social media teams. My first job in the Middle East was to head up the social media department for Mindshare, Middle East and North Africa. And it was convincing 12 different internal stakeholders that we needed a social media department. And by doing that, to show that we could make money from it. So we built a pan-Arab hub in Beirut to service Mindshare's 200 clients across the region on social media. And they were convinced because they saw a new revenue stream. So that was doing it entrepreneurial. But then it comes to a point that now we're doing it within a publishing space. So we do it by, we question ourselves every day, why are we doing this? Why do we exist? Why does Love in Dubai and Love in Saudi exist? There's Gulf News, there's Kalish Times, there's Time Out. Why do we exist? We exist because we think we can produce media in a way that people are consuming it. People aren't picking up the newspapers, are spending as much time in front of TV than they used to. So we're creating content. We say we're a multi-platform strategy. We're as focused on podcasts and Instagram as we are on our website. So when we speak to clients, we still use some terms that the industry benchmarks us on, such as page views, but really we know we're offering a lot more value with other metrics and other consumption channels across strategy. It's all about the consumer. It's all about where we're engaging with people.
Yeah, just to build on that real quick, because that's a big piece of the foundation of our business is just there's too many businesses, regardless of industry, that are, when it comes to marketing and advertising, that are thinking about marketing and advertising in the way that the world was as opposed to the way that the world is. We like to say there's too many brands that are marketing like it's 2008 or 1998 instead of 2018, and it changes so quickly, so you have to be in the places where people actually are. But I actually wanted to ask a follow-up question to the first part of what you said, because I think it's interesting and something that I've experienced when you talked about setting up a social media team specifically. So I think that's a question that might relate to some of the people in the audience, because there's basically two ways to go about change, right? There's either you build it vertically with a specialized group who can plug in there, do it immediately, service your clients or whatever the business need is, or you try to build it horizontally, where you try to get everybody to understand what needs to happen with change, and it's a rising tide that lifts all boats, which is good in the long term, but can be harder in the short term. So for the people here, it would be good to hear just your perspective on that. Do you think that you need to, if it comes to emerging technology or new media, go out and hire that expert, or do you focus more on trying to build that education within your wider existing teams?
I think it's a good question. I think leaders, and I'm sure there's many in the room who have to put through big organizational teams through change. And even within the media agency environment, there was other change going on. So there was a move from TV planning to integrated, including digital. They used to hire digital specialists and TV specialists, and then there's integration going on. And separately, there was the social media arm. In markets where VaynerMedia has progressed, they were able to offer something that the big agencies didn't offer. Whereas in this region, the big agencies were able to offer that as a new service. In the UK, we offered it, social media in the UK, and we didn't make money from it. So I was determined to prove that it didn't have to be an added value. So we did hire the specialists, and we did have a different mindset. Like Unilever might have a different mindset for their Axe brand as opposed to the other brands. So we had a different mindset for social media. Media rates are about media buying and volume, whereas in social media we charged by the hour, and it was always on. We were doing 24/7. Our contracts we were the first agency in the world to set up a Facebook page for HSBC. It took us 3 years to do through compliance and everything, but we had to offer 24/7 crisis management. They were shutting down bank accounts in Syria, and we had to say that we could provide the service, and we did. So we had to be different, but we also had to be able to progress at all. We had to have the buy-in of all the other traditional people in a company of 500 people. So it was a bit of both.
Okay, great. Ritesh, over to you to talk a little bit about how you approach change and your role as an innovator and a challenger in your industry.
Sure. I guess I'll use my experiences and the businesses that I've built in the past and the one I'm currently running to give examples of how we're trying to innovate. So One of my earlier startups was called CareZone. It was a mobile loyalty platform for social good. And there, essentially, we're incentivizing people to spend more wisely. So spend with merchants within our partner network, just like most loyalty programs. So instead of a plastic card, there was a digital app, and this is back in 2011. And by shopping within our network, you get points, half of which we make you give away to a good cause, but you get to decide which cause. We also give you points just for checking in. And we asked our retail partners to fund those points. And they said, what if somebody comes into our store and doesn't spend anything? We're paying for that regardless. And I said, well, if I bring somebody into your store and you can't convince them to buy anything, that's not me failing, that's you failing. Nonetheless, I'll find a partner to pay for that check-in. And so I did. I actually got HSBC, funny enough. So I guess they're innovators in that sense. And HSBC, I said to them, we'll serve a full screen ad to anybody who checks into any of these locations. These are highly motivated customers who are willing to go out of their way to support brands that they care about and their causes. They loved it. Ads for personal loans every time someone checks in, again, points into their account. So half the points, we make you give them away to a good cause of your choice. Anything from Dubai Autism Center, Emirates Marine Environmental Group, to Palestine Children's Relief Fund and United Nations World Food Program, feeding kids in Africa. And the other half you can redeem for rewards, or you can give those away as well. And there's tangible results that are achieved due to your contribution, and we make that financial contribution on your behalf. So that was me trying to innovate, essentially empowering customers to give back to their favorite causes without having to give anything extra from their own pocket. This is spend that they would have made anyway. They're going to buy coffee or a donut or a cupcake. Why not buy it from a brand that has decided to give back to the community? So that was something I worked on for 2 years. Wasn't able to raise funding. It was apparently too innovative for this region. So I eventually had to shut it down when I ran out of funds, which I had put in my own. And so fast forward now to what I'm working on now. So Enhance is something I launched about 2.5 years ago with my partner, Alper, and we are essentially a venture builder. The challenge that a lot of startups face around the world, but especially in this region, we have a lot of fragmented markets, lots of currencies, different dialects of Arabic. Cost of doing business is very high. Talent is very hard to come by. So we said, why don't we invest time and effort into building that once, but then reuse it over and over again for every subsequent venture that we want to build? So that way you're compressing the time to market and the cost to launch for every subsequent business. And you can consolidate a lot of your assets and resources and spread them across the group. So everything from your office space, trade license, the marketing talent, tech talent. We have a development center in Cairo. Your fundraising as well happens at the group level. Your customer database, we acquire, let's say, for example, 100,000 customers at $20 a pop. That's $2 million worth of value that's readily available to the next venture overnight for free. So we're trying to innovate on the business model itself for how you're going to build startups. So as a group, we're much more successful, and the value of the group keeps growing as you add more and more startups to the group. Now, under Enhance, the first venture that we've launched is called Joy. It's an online gift platform where we're a marketplace, curated. We sell the best brands like Godiva and Magnolia Bakery, Batil in Saudi, and so on. They create the products, but we deliver it ourselves, so we own last mile. And the reason we do that is because we wanted to control the experience. The whole point of gifting is to make someone feel special. That is the difference between gifting and anything else in e-commerce. It's not about moving a box from A to B. It's about making someone happy on their special day. So our delivery guys are dressed in very nice concierge-style uniforms with a waist jacket and a side cap. They're trained to make you feel special. So they make eye contact, they smile. In August, they'll be wearing deodorant. And in, when they arrive, they'll wish you a happy birthday, and then they can also sing for you. So they sing everything from happy birthday to Nat King Cole's LOVE for Valentine's Day and anniversaries. They dress up as Santa Claus and sing jingle bells for Christmas, and so on and so forth. So that's something that we're doing today already. And the idea is to create stickiness. It's also about creating amazing content that people are recording videos and posting on social media. So it's actually, we have virality built into the model by design. People are going to be sharing this on our behalf. We don't have to try. So that's worked out really well. The other thing we're also trying to do is, within the technology, the platform, we allow customers, the senders, to actually record a video. So the recipient, when they receive the video, they receive the gift, there's a greeting card with a link in there. When they go online, watch the video, hopefully makes them feel really emotional, sentimental, a tear rolls down their cheek. And just then, as they're feeling these emotions, we allow them to record a reply to the sender. So the sender, who would love to have been there, but can't for whatever reason, feels almost like he was, because he gets to see the reaction of the recipient. And so that experience comes full circle. And that's something that nobody does anywhere in the world today. We're the first ones to do that. But there's no reason why you can't, right? The technology exists. It's very simple. But it's about thinking about what the meaning of gifting is. What is that experience supposed to feel and look like? And so that's where we stepped in and just walked through the entire process and tried to insert innovation into various parts to enhance the experience for both the senders and the recipients.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that this group can relate to, is the experience along with the product is so important. I wanted to just draw out one thing that you said, which was one of your past companies was the right idea, but maybe it wasn't the right time. And so I think that's an interesting thing, if you could just expand on it super quickly on just how do you know when the right time is for innovation? Because you can be too early, but in the case of many people that work at bigger companies, you can also be too late. So how do you think about getting that timing right? Sure.
In our case, there's two factors. So one was the fact that at that time, we built an iOS app, but back in 2011, iOS is barely on the map, right? Apps had barely been launched. So in that sense, people were still, there wasn't enough of an installed base of iOS devices to start off with. And we even had Symbian apps on the roadmap. That's how far back we're talking. We had BlackBerry, Android was barely on the map. And so all of those were in the pipeline, but iOS is what we decided to launch with. People barely had data plans. So there were all these points of friction to get people to use our app on a regular basis, or enough people to be using it as well. So in that sense, we were early. Now, the other issue was the fact that this is the Middle East we're talking about. The investment landscape at that time was still quite underdeveloped, if I may put it mildly. There weren't enough investors in tech to start off with. The ones that were there were looking for low-hanging fruit. They were looking for copy-paste from the West, Me Too models that they could point to and say, okay, this is like that, and that did well. It raised money, it exited, so this probably will too. So when I went to them asking for money, they said, so what is this like? And I said with pride, this is like nothing else anywhere in the world. And they said, oh, okay, can you come back to us when you find something that this is like? And then I said, I'll put in all my own money and launch it, and I'll have something that they can touch and feel, they'll see traction, and then they'll want to join in. So I did. I put in all of my own money, I hired the team, built the product, launched it. We had 1,000 active users in the first month with 0 marketing spend. And they all said, oh, wow, this is awesome. So this looks like it's just out of Silicon Valley. Are you sure you built it here? I said, yes. And I said, okay, great. They then said to me, we'd love to invest in this. As soon as we find a lead investor, let us know. We'd love to jump in. And if everyone says that and nobody actually takes the lead, I'm dead in the water. And that's essentially what happened as well. So I ran out of cash at some point and had to shut down. So it was the wrong region, if you will, from an investment standpoint. But it was also early from a technology adoption and awareness standpoint as well. Great. So Maha, tell us a little bit more about you, your role as a challenger, how you bring change to your industries.
Yeah, so I think the internet has had a profound impact on all of our lives, but it has had a huge impact on the communications industry. So this is my job 20 years ago in public relations. I'd write or run a story for a client. I would write a press release. I would send it to the journalist. It would be in the paper the next day. Or I'd work with the producer on a story, and we'd work to get them filmed. We'd try to get it booked, and it would show up the next week. Now, thanks to the internet, everything we do is in real time. You have to be thinking in real time. You have to be responding in real time. You have to be telling your stories in real time. And it's like doing maintenance on a car as it's driving down the highway. Everybody can see what's happening. Everyone can see what you're doing. So in communications, the way you tell your stories and how you communicate to people is not necessarily through the press. You have the beauty of doing it yourself. You have the beauty of talking directly to your consumers. Your social media platforms are a gateway to talk to your customers, to impress them, to have quick turnaround on how you communicate with them, and to win hearts and minds. And I always talk to my clients and to people I work with about thinking about social media and digital communications as a really good way to turn around and improve, build, and protect your reputation. So think about your reputation in terms of currency. What is it worth? How do you earn it? What is the value? If you have really strong communications, you can help protect your currency, your reputation currency. And I think a lot of times I talk to people about whose job is it in the company to do communications. It's not the public relations person, and it's not the CEO. It's every single person's job in the organization to do communications. Because everyone in the company is a brand ambassador, has social media, talks to customers, talks to guests, talks to investors, talks to stakeholders. So make sure that everyone knows what the company's mission is and how you do the storytelling and cascade it through the company. I think that's one of the biggest things that's changed in my industry. It's not a gateway to go to somewhere. I really have to think about how I communicate, how my brands communicate, and how we really use technology in a really strong way. I will talk about just one other quick thing, which is fake news. Everyone knows about fake news. Like, how do you control your reputation when people are posting things that might not necessarily be true? How do you protect your reputation when other people are speaking on your behalf? Well, you got to be ready. You got to have people who are managing your social media because it's a really good way to win customers. The worst time to do crisis planning is when you're in the middle of a crisis. So think about how you're going to use your tools to help you. For companies that do a really good job at communications, it's tested when they're in a crisis. How well did they handle it? A crisis is a really good way it's a really good opportunity to win and to show people who you are, what your values are. So think about Facebook, what they're going through right now. Is the way that they're handling this crisis making people have more confidence and more trust in them? Think about your business. What would you do if automatically tomorrow all of your customers' data was online? How would you handle that? How would you protect your reputation? And that's kind of the crux of what communications is about today. It's about real time, it's about trust, and it's about really being transparent.
Yeah, it's something, so we do a lot of storytelling just as an advertising agency, but a lot of real-time marketing and social media in particular. And one of the things that we consult with our clients on is that the best reactive approach is often a strong proactive investment. So you map out the potential circumstances, you staff a project accordingly so that you're prepared to be able to react to whatever comes up, even if you don't know exactly what it is.
Yeah, it's sort of like offense versus defense. So really making sure that you're thinking about how to be on the front foot of your brand, how to connect with people. So having digital platforms is a really great tool for you to connect with people and tell stories and tell them directly about the experiences they're having. I think I liked how you talked about the emotion and connecting with people when you give them a gift, and now you can put that online and let people tell the story for you. Is it better for me to say how great my gifts are, or for someone to say, oh my God, I got this terrific gift and I love it? One of the playbooks we talk about a lot at Netflix is you want to create a story that's two things. It has to be shareable and snackable, okay? So shareable moment could be something when someone comes to your hotel or is at your resort, give them a moment that they want to share because they're going to tell somebody about it. Give them the opportunity to tell a story on your behalf. That is far better than you telling that story. The second thing is snackable. Snackable means easy to digest. Something is small and quick and easy to understand. If you have to make a lot of effort, and I think VaynerMedia does a great job about talking about thumb-stomping content. It's a tongue twister for me. But you're sitting on your phone. What makes you stop your thumb to read something? That's the kind of content you guys want to create. And that's the kind of moment you want to create for your content and your storytelling. Let people stop. Think about yourself on your social media. How come, what content makes you post it on your personal Facebook page? Put yourself in the shoes of the consumer. Would you share that? Then don't create it. Invest in creating something that you yourself might want to share on your page with your friends and family. So I always think, I'm not going to market to people. I'm going to think about myself being in the consumer's shoes. Is that something I would tell my sister about? Is that something I tell my friends, oh my gosh, you have to go to this resort, you have to check this out? Always think in the minds of the consumer because you are one, and always remember that.
Yeah, I think that's great. So I'm going to tee up a different question. We'll start with you, Richard. So interested to hear, everybody comes from different verticals. Whether it's within your vertical or just the broader landscape, would love to hear an example of a brand or a business that you think is acting like a challenger or navigating change well or horribly. So it can be a mini case study in how to do it well or a mini case study in how not to do it. So I know, Richard, we were talking a little bit about Facebook and how they really re-engineered their business to be desktop first all the way to mobile first and did it very quickly. I don't know if that's something that you want to build on.
Yeah, so I think Facebook is an interesting example in general. When they IPO'd in May 2012, the reaction wasn't as positive as, say, when Google IPO'd, or even last week when Spotify did, because people looked at media consumption at the time and saw everyone was on mobile, and they looked at Facebook's revenue stream, and 0% revenue at the time was on mobile. They only actually introduced the newsfeed ad in August of that year. In 2017, 90% of Facebook's revenue growth was via mobile. That doesn't happen by launching an app. That happened by actually the vision, the internal structure changing. Move fast and break things, but also mobile first. Everything had to be coded first for mobile. And that led to multi-app strategy. So when they bought WhatsApp for 19 billion, Messenger was part of the Facebook app. And then they broke them up, and they made everyone download Messenger separately. And now they have 650 million users of Messenger, almost for free in a way, but they have a separate app strategy there. So, and interestingly, in the media consumption space, people compare Facebook also on Instagram. People say that Instagram copied Snapchat stories to innovate their product. But actually, if we look back, if we rewind the clock in media to 2011, 2012, most media organizations were publishing a lot on Twitter, and they really liked Twitter, and Facebook felt threatened by this. So Facebook actually changed their algorithm to woo and to embrace media publishers. And they did it so much that when they really embraced video with we all know of the Ice Bucket Challenge, that was actually Facebook changing their algorithm in 2015 to prioritize video, but really to woo in media publishers. And now we've got a situation where it's backfired. And Mark Zuckerberg said this year, before the Cambridge Analytica incident, that his approach for this year was to fix Facebook. And they're doing that by changing the algorithm again. They were a couple of thousand employees in 2012, and they did change to be mobile first. But now all media organizations who built their businesses on Facebook since 2012, and many of them, such as Lad Bible or a lot of big publishers in the US, had to let go a lot of staff in February, March this year, because they were publishing for one platform only. And traditional media organizations were threatened by this approach by Facebook, now they're happier because the algorithm's changing. So I think while Facebook had to change mobile first, media publishers also need to change as well. But I think what the overall message here is that if you can publish natively on each platform, if you can publish well for Facebook or for Instagram or for audio now, then that's where the media is being consumed, and that's where the audience is.
Great, thank you. Ritesh, quick case study on how to navigate change the right way or the wrong way.
Sure. So, sorry, can everyone hear me? There we go. All right. So I think there's some great examples of good ones. I'll start with some bad ones. One is Google Glass, and the learning there was price is too high. People value their privacy. and it's socially unacceptable to be walking around looking like dorks, wearing this technology on your face. Another one was Nokia, and I can speak to that as an authority because I was there on the inside. Great specs, but too much focus on specs and not so much on product marketing and the utility, the benefit that you get from these specifications. Another one's QR codes. Quite useful, but ugly as hell. And you can't, litter an environment with QR codes just because they provide some sort of utility. Also, you don't actually have native built-in support on operating systems, your mobile OSs. You have to download another app for it. So the ecosystem didn't support that. So there's plenty of examples of bad innovation. Good ones, Tesla, I really like that example. The automotive industry has been quite stagnant. They innovate on a hardware side, but not so much on software. And I think Tesla was the first one to really push the limits there. A few other examples I can give that might be actually very relevant for you guys in the hotel industry. We're actually talking to one of the hotel chains, I won't say who, but we're brainstorming about how we can help them with gifting. And essentially, there's so many opportunities there. The reason, so if you take a step back, you want to merge the online and offline experience as much as possible. That should be the goal for hospitality in general. And this is why you have pictures and videos on your websites, virtual reality tours of the facility, of the venue before you actually book a stay there. So you have some idea of what to expect and you decide this is what I want. We said, when somebody's actually making a reservation, in many cases, it's an occasion, right? It might be a honeymoon, a birthday, weekend getaway, whatever it might be. At that point, if, for example, the husband is making the reservation, why not allow him to add on some sort of an experience or a gift? Fill the entire room with roses, or have a nice, bottle of champagne waiting in the room. And some of these are things that hotels do today already. But you can really push the limit on that and make it a really special experience, a weekend that your wife will never forget. The other thing you can also do is when you're actually leaving, or actually no, sorry, step back. When you're actually there, your family and friends back home could send you a gift if, for example, it's your honeymoon, a wedding present or something. And then once you've actually left, if you had hosts in that town who took care of you, how about sending them something back, once you reach your home? So there's a few different things that even in the hospitality industry, the envelope can really be pushed, and there's opportunities for innovation there on all fronts as well.
Great, thank you. Maha, any examples
I don't
from
have a
you?
lot of examples of case studies, but I can tell a couple things that I see when I look at how companies react to situations is be humble, and if you make a mistake, apologize. So I don't know, you might have heard KFC ran out of chicken in the UK like a couple of weeks ago or a month ago. It's like they sell chicken and people went to get chicken. There was no chicken. They had to shut down like 20 outlets, right? So that's a big problem. It's like coming to the hotel and there's no beds. Like, it's a problem. That's why people go there. So what they did is they came up with a brilliant campaign to own up on how they apologized for it because they didn't have any chicken. And they just said, sorry, we didn't have chicken. They came up with a very clever ad that's just not appropriate to say here, but you have to see the visual. But the story is they apologized. The way that they apologized won over customers. People were really forgiving that they ran out of chicken. It became a little bit of a joke, and they made it up to their customers. So if you make a mistake, apologize. I think you see it even with Mark Zuckerberg, even though he came out late. They just went on a massive apology tour, took out the ads. Because the internet is so transparent, there's no hiding. So if you make a mistake, be authentic, say it. People will be forgiving if you say sorry. They will not be forgiving if you try to, cover it up and spin it. It just won't happen. I mean, I wouldn't as a consumer believe that, so you shouldn't expect that someone on the receiving end will either.
Great. So we got a few minutes left. I want to wrap it up by just doing a quick lightning round, like 1 minute each, on what is the biggest or best tip or piece of advice that you would give to the group here from your perspective as an innovator and someone who challenges the status quo. And I'll go first to let you guys have a second to condense your thoughts. But one of my kind of favorite mantras, quotes from our CEO, is that he says the most important job for him as the CEO is to try to put the business, to put our agency out of business before somebody else does. And I really like that, and the way that it bridges into what we're talking about is I think it's so important, whether you're a CEO or any type of business leader, to think about how you can bring a sense of challenger mentality from within, because it's definitely coming from without. And if it comes from without before it comes from within, you have to react to it. You're on the back foot, and you usually are not in a position to win or lead. So I think that's really important. That's my one piece of tip or advice. But let's go back around this way.
Okay,
Maha.
so I am the daughter of an educator, and I am a huge believer in being a lifelong learner. The internet has tons of information that's out there, and guess what? It's free. So all you have to do is go grab it. Learn from what other companies are doing, learn from all the amazing channels on YouTube, learn from other platforms and sites that are out there. There's a lot of information out there. You can learn from podcasts when you're in the car. Take advantage of the free information that's available on the internet and figure out how you can learn from what other companies are doing and adapt it to your business.
So I'd like to think I'm an innovator, and my mantra there is always question the status quo. Why do things need to be done the way they have been done for days, weeks, years, or centuries? Go through the customer journey and question why it needs to be that way. So, and every step of the way, you need to ask yourself, what problem am I solving? Is there a problem that the customer faces today that I could do better with? And that should drive anything that you do differently. And the key there is not to force something down customers' throats. So innovation for the sake of innovation, it's going to fail, right? So always listen to feedback. Always ask your customers what they think, and do it with small subsets of your customers. Don't roll something out, mass market, until you've tested it and received feedback and iterated on it and so on and so forth. And that's a long process. It'll take many cycles if you want to do it right.
I think I would adopt an approach where you remove the trappings that allow innovation within a small business or a big business. I don't think disruptors need to be fixated by how Airbnb or Uber approach. I think disruptors, I call ourselves a new media company, but I think we operate exactly the same way that if we set up a company 50 years ago, if we were a law firm that's specializing in new media at the moment, and that's how we view it. I heard someone from Marriott speaking on the radio this morning about the loyalty program, and I was actually bought into that, and I thought, well, Uber don't have a loyalty program like that, or Airbnb don't. So the consumers will respond if you can remove the trappings, and for them the trapping was technology. It was antiquated. So I think that would be my advice and my approach to media. We're just going to, if we see things creeping in that has held back companies before, then we're going to remove that and pushing forward. Our vision is to establish and maintain a new order in media advertising, and we're constantly going to change over the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years to do that, just by removing trappings and not trying to be the next Uber.
Great. So I think we have time for a quick question, if the room has warmed up enough. Jonathan?
Yeah, Eric, Gary Vaynerchuk is a bit of a rock star for the media world, and you haven't really spoken about him at all. He has millions of followers. What is he doing, and how did he get to that sort of following?
Yeah.
What's his little je ne sais quoi?
Thanks for the plug. So our CEO is a guy named Gary Vaynerchuk. If you look him up, you'll know what Jonathan is talking about. He's a really simple guy. It's funny, there's an American baseball pitcher named Mariano Rivera who is one of the all-time greats, and he only had one pitch. It's just nobody could hit it. And Gary says that he's the same thing as a businessman and entrepreneur. All that he does is he understands the gap between where people are actually spending their time and where businesses are marketing to them. Because like I said before, there's a lag. Whether it's a couple months or a couple of years, the bigger the lag, the bigger the opportunity. And so he's, whether it's his family's wine business, whether it's as an angel investor in Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, understanding what was happening before other people did, or building VaynerMedia, that's his thing, is he just understands where people are spending their time. So it's funny that I'm up here talking about disruption, because when he gets introduced, he has a lot of public speaking, and people introduce him as a disruptor, and the first thing he says is, I'm just practical. I'm just reacting to what's happening and what's actually out there. It's just everybody else isn't. So that's his thing. And then the other thing, which I think is relevant for this group too, is he's a practitioner. So the reason that he has the advice for our Fortune 500 clients is because he does it for his personal brand. He is on there posting every comment, every post on Instagram, every piece of content that goes out from him is from himself, even at the scale that he's at. So he tastes it and he has a first-person understanding of what this change actually is. And I think it's really important, especially for the people that are more senior business leaders. You get disconnected from the change and you delegate it to somebody else, but it's so important to have your hands dirty and have a first-person perspective on what this stuff actually is.
Actually, that's a good point. That one of the things that we do with a lot of the clients I work with is we let the CEO run the social media channels for a couple of days, because that's how you learn what the customers are asking. You get a pulse for what are the issues and how to respond to them. And it's rewarding to hear good feedback and to also understand what the issues are that they can take up the chain to get them solved. So you can learn a lot from doing that.
Great. So that's what we got for you guys. Thank you so much for having us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Eric, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Great to hear a little bit more about the intersection between branding and business and really the blur between the two. I hadn't really thought about the gift as being a platform for two-way media. I certainly had heard about the fact that everybody communicates, because let's face it, in the hospitality business, we've lived with that since the dawn of hospitality. The difference is now that communication isn't just instantaneous, it's permanent, and it can reach anywhere in the world. So thank you for that delightfully insightful panel.